The sun dipped low over the small town of Maplewood, casting long shadows that danced across the sidewalks. In the heart of this seemingly idyllic community lived Robert, a man of quiet strength and unwavering loyalty. At 62, he had seen the world change around him, but his values remained steadfast. He had built a life with Laura, his wife of 35 years, a woman who had once been the light of his life. They had weathered storms together, from the loss of loved ones to the trials of raising two children now grown with families of their own. But as the twilight of their lives approached, an unexpected darkness crept into their home. It began with whispers, a slight change in Laura's demeanor, a new fragrance lingering in the air, a missed call that she quickly dismissed. Robert, ever the devoted husband, brushed aside his growing unease. He reminded himself of the years they had shared, the laughter, and the love that had once filled their home. Surely it was just his imagination. Yet as the days turned to weeks, the signs became harder to ignore. Laura would leave for errands that lasted far longer than necessary, and her late-night phone calls became more frequent, filled with hushed tones that sent Robert's heart racing. One fateful afternoon, while cleaning out the garage, Robert stumbled upon an old box filled with forgotten mementos. Among them lay a cherished photo of their wedding day, where Laura's radiant smile was forever captured. He held it close, nostalgia washing over him. But his reverie was abruptly shattered when he found something else, an unfamiliar receipt crumpled at the bottom of the box. It was for a hotel, dated just a week prior. Robert's heart sank as he pieced together the implications. The love of his life, the woman he had devoted himself to, was betraying him. His mind raced as he confronted Laura that evening. The air in the room was thick with tension as he laid the receipt on the table. "What's this, Laura?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of disbelief and anger. The color drained from her face as she stammered, struggling to find the words to explain. "It's not what you think, Robert," she began, but her eyes betrayed her, darting away from his penetrating gaze. The truth spilled forth like a broken dam. Laura had been seeing a man from her yoga class, a younger man who had rekindled a spark she thought had long been extinguished. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. Robert felt his heart shatter, each piece echoing memories of a life they had built together. He had devoted himself to her, shared his hopes and dreams, and in return, she had chosen to shatter their sacred bond. As the shock settled into a simmering anger, Robert felt a fire ignite within him. He knew he had to reclaim his dignity, to assert the man he had always been. But he also understood that the path ahead required careful planning. He couldn't just confront her. He needed to craft a response that would not only make her understand the depth of her betrayal, but also allow him to heal. In the following weeks, Robert devised a plan. He began by reestablishing connections with old friends, venturing out to places he once enjoyed. He found solace in the company of those who had stood by him through life's ups and downs. The more he engaged with the world outside his home, the more he rediscovered himself, the man Laura had once fallen in love with. He started running again, feeling the wind against his face and the rhythm of his heart as he pounded the pavement. It was a simple joy that had been lost for years, and it rekindled a sense of empowerment within him. Then he took a trip to the local hardware store, purchasing supplies for a project he had long neglected, a woodworking bench for his garage. He had always enjoyed crafting furniture, and now, with a newfound determination, he poured his heart into creating something beautiful, piece by piece. Each stroke of the chisel was a cathartic release, a way to channel his pain into something tangible. But Robert's plan wasn't just about self-improvement. He wanted Laura to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the consequences of her betrayal. So, he began to gather evidence of her infidelity, discreetly documenting her whereabouts during those late-night excursions and the times she would slip away for errands. It was a bitter task, but necessary. As he transformed his pain into strength, the day finally arrived when he felt ready to confront Laura once more. He invited her to sit down in the living room, a space that had once been filled with laughter, but now felt like a battlefield. With a calm that surprised even himself, he laid out the evidence he had collected. Her face turned pale as she realized the lengths he had gone to uncover the truth. "Laura," he began, his voice steady, "this isn't just about the lies. It's about the love we once shared and the trust you shattered. You've taken something sacred and turned it into a weapon against us." As she sat there, silent and remorseful, Robert felt a mixture of sadness and resolve. He knew that this moment could either lead to reconciliation or the end of their journey together. But one thing was certain: he would no longer be the victim of her betrayal. Feeling empowered, he prepared to take the next steps to reclaim his life, knowing that the strongest revenge was not about hurting her, but about healing himself. The road ahead would not be easy, but Robert was ready to walk it, one step at a time. With each passing day, Robert felt a mix of sorrow and determination. He poured himself into his woodworking, crafting beautiful pieces that filled the garage with the scent of fresh pine. Each stroke of the chisel was cathartic, a way to channel his pent-up emotions. Friends began to notice the change in him. He was becoming a man of purpose again, rediscovering the joy of creation. One evening, as he finished a sturdy oak table, his friend Mark stopped by. "You seem different, Rob. What's going on?" Mark asked, taking a seat on the newly crafted bench. Robert took a deep breath, the weight of his heartache spilling out. He shared everything: the betrayal, a confrontation, the emotional turmoil. Mark listened intently, nodding with understanding. "You know, my brother went through something similar," Mark said, leaning forward. "He found an outlet in a community group. Maybe you could do the same. There are guys who've been through it. You'd find support there." The idea resonated with Robert. He attended his first meeting, feeling somewhat out of place among the group of men who shared their stories of heartache and betrayal. But as he listened, he realized he wasn't alone. Each tale echoed his own pain, and with each story shared, he felt a sense of camaraderie. Weeks passed, and Robert grew stronger. He found solace in sharing his experience, and even began to help others navigate their own journeys through betrayal. He shared his woodworking skills too, teaching others how to create as a form of therapy. But amidst the healing, he still faced Laura. After the confrontation, they had yet to discuss the future of their marriage. One evening, Robert returned home to find Laura sitting at the kitchen table, her face drawn and weary. "Robert, "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He nodded, steeling himself for the conversation that had been brewing for weeks. "I know I've hurt you," she began, tears brimming in her eyes. "What I did was unforgivable. I was lost, and I took the wrong path. I want to make things right." Robert listened, feeling the weight of her words. "Laura, making things right isn't just about apologies. It's about trust and honesty. You've broken something that's hard to repair." "I understand," she replied, her voice cracking. "I want to go to counseling. I want to work on our marriage. Please give me a chance to prove I can change." The sincerity in her eyes tugged at something deep within him. He thought about the years they had shared, the laughter and love, but he also thought about his own journey of self-restoration. He needed time to reflect on what he truly wanted. "I'll consider it," he said finally, his voice steady. "But know this, trust is earned, and it will take time to rebuild what you've broken." Laura nodded, understanding the gravity of her actions. As he walked away, Robert felt a mixture of hope and skepticism. He was ready to take control of his life, but the path forward remained uncertain. Days turned into weeks, and Robert continued to rebuild himself. He immersed himself in his woodworking, teaching classes that attracted a diverse group of people. One day, while preparing for a class, he encountered a woman named Sarah. She was passionate about woodworking and had an infectious enthusiasm that drew him in. As they worked side by side, Robert found himself laughing again. Sarah was different. She listened, engaged, and inspired him. She spoke of her own life experiences, offering a perspective that was refreshing. Robert realized he was beginning to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time: joy. But with these new feelings came conflict. Laura continued to reach out, wanting to mend the rift, but Robert felt torn. He was on a path of healing, yet the shadow of his past loomed large. As he stood in his workshop one evening, surrounded by the scent of sawdust and the sound of laughter drifting in from the classroom, Robert knew he faced an important decision. His heart urged him to explore this new connection with Sarah, but his mind reminded him of the history he shared with Laura. The choices he made now would shape his future. Would he open his heart to new possibilities, or would he hold on to the remnants of a marriage that had caused him so much pain? The answers were not clear. But Robert knew one thing: he was finally in control of his life, ready to embrace whatever came next. With each passing day, Robert found himself increasingly drawn to Sarah. Their shared passion for woodworking became a sanctuary where laughter replaced sorrow, and the fresh scent of sawdust reminded him of new beginnings. Sarah was vibrant and supportive, a stark contrast to the betrayal he had faced. They spent weekends crafting beautiful furniture together, and under the soft glow of their workshop lights, Robert felt a warmth he thought he'd lost forever. Meanwhile, Laura continued to reach out, desperate to rekindle what they once had. She attended counseling, promising to change and rebuild their relationship. However, Robert couldn't shake the memories of her betrayal. He remembered the pain, the loneliness, and the sleepless nights that had followed her affair. No amount of therapy could erase those scars. One evening, Laura called him, her voice shaky. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Robert. I want to show you how much I've changed. Can we meet?" Robert hesitated, but agreed. When they met, Laura appeared different. She had lost weight. Her eyes held a vulnerability he hadn't seen in years. She spoke passionately about her therapy sessions, how she was learning to communicate better, and how she truly understood the gravity of her actions. But as he listened, Robert felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with resentment. "Laura," he said calmly, "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I've moved on. I'm not the same person who was crushed by your betrayal." He could see the hurt on her face, and for a moment he felt guilty. But deep down, he knew that he deserved to be happy, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Over the next few months, Robert continued to explore his budding relationship with Sarah. They traveled to woodworking expos, sharing their creations and connecting with other artisans. One day, in the midst of a workshop, Robert finally mustered the courage to ask Sarah out on an official date. She lit up, her smile infectious, and they spent a magical evening under the stars, discussing everything from their dreams to their favorite species of wood. As their bond deepened, Robert decided it was time to close the chapter with Laura for good. He invited her to meet one last time, wanting to bring closure to their tumultuous past. At their meeting spot, a quaint cafe where they had shared many happy moments, Robert spoke from his heart. "Laura, I think you're on a great path, and I truly wish you the best. But I can't go back to what we had. My heart is no longer in that place. It's with someone who appreciates me for who I am now." Tears welled in Laura's eyes, but she nodded, understanding that their time together had come to an end. They parted ways, and for the first time in years, Robert felt a weight lift off his shoulders. With a renewed sense of self, he embraced his life with Sarah. They collaborated on a beautiful mahogany dining table, which they decided to enter into a local craft fair. The day of the fair arrived, and as they stood proudly beside their creation, Robert realized he had found not only a partner in woodworking, but a partner in life. The fair was a success, and as they celebrated their achievements, Robert knew he had made the right choice. He had transformed his pain into passion, his heartbreak into happiness. In that moment, surrounded by friends, laughter, and the promise of a bright future, he raised a glass with Sarah, toasting to new beginnings and the unexpected joys that life can bring.